Miss Malaruli, you need to unmute yourself before you started. Hello, hello. And now, and today we can say hello, hello from Singapore and Singapore since you're
Yes,
not in
yes.
Malaysia,
Hello,
right?
Singapore. From
Hello,
Singapore.
Singapore, and just neighbors actually, very close to each other, but in different places. You had a safe flight today in?
Yes, yes. I had a interesting safe flight. I almost missed my flight.
Oh, okay. You didn't tell me about that part.
I thought I will save you the drama when I see you, so I can tell you that with expressions.
Oh, okay. All right. And also considering the fact that our topic today are the F words in leadership. Yep, I can understand why you may have not chosen to tell me about, about it. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So, hello, everyone. Welcome to the final Thursday or show for April. And we thought, Malar and I, between ourselves, thought that we will do something a little bit naughty and triggering. And so we titled our topic or our discussion for today as F words in leadership. Right, I knowing full well where some minds would go and wonder what is it that we're going to be talking about, right? And yeah, we came on to this topic because we've been having some interesting conversations in the past weeks about how people react in teams, right, Malar? Yeah, Malar. What? Why? From that's my
Actually, I
perspective.
think
That's my thinking. Yeah. Why is it that you suggested F words, right?
because it's my favorite topic and it's been haunting me. I
Huh.
think today I put up a post on LinkedIn. So for those on LinkedIn, please come and say hello. I can see you. So hello, say hello to us because
Yes.
I can see that you're there. So just say hello if you can, so that you can encourage me, or and us actually. So Sham, I think one of those things I realized over the years of doing EQ work, right,
Mm,
is
mm,
that the basis of emotions is really the F's that we are talking about.
mm.
And it's very
Okay.
interesting. It's very, very interesting for me, even as a person who's been very excited about EQ all these years, right?
Mm,
It never occurred to me how important the foundational understanding of emotions, right?
okay.
Now, why do I say that? So and I realized that especially post pandemic, right? A lot of we talk about mental health, we are more open to talking about emotions. There's also a lot of data, and scientific
Mm,
research that tells you that you don't separate the head from the body,
okay.
right?
Yeah.
And if you look at the kind of work that we've been doing, whether it's team building or leadership program, more and more leaders are struggling with, on one hand, how do I make my people feel safe? I think we've
Okay.
dealt with I think psychological safety. On the
Mm,
other hand, we also know that people are really struggling, especially in this part of the world, with working from home.
mm.
Into consideration the foundation to what we see as the impact of efforts both in psychology and these are two criteria for and to attract talent and to retain talent. So I thought we should just talk about it, you know
Okay.
and see where it takes us. Yeah, anyway.
Sure. 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 And shall we tell them what the F words are, or should we pull it out one by one, or give give it to them in doses? Which one do you want to go?
Yeah, yeah. Whichever one you tell me to go with, Chi. I'm very
Oh,
obedient today because I'm in your
Shewa.
country.
Okay. Okay. All right. So I think we
What's your
got
say?
you kind of given us a hint, or given our listeners and viewers a hint of what exactly the F words are, right? It's predicated around
Yeah,
uh, psychological safety, right? And the ability to contribute and do to be optimally performing at the workplace, right? Um, and I think when we said the F words, many people tend to hook on to three, but there are more. We
exactly.
think, yeah, we think it's right now it's at five, but there's possibly a six that's coming up, right? So what are the F words, right? We have the ones that we know, which is fight, flight, freeze. All right, that's the three that we know. Oh, that were the three, first ones that we were talking about and thinking about. And then now we have flock and we have fawn, right? The possible six, maybe we'll talk about that later. But let's see I'm reading a little bit about it, and it seems to be coming up a little bit more obviously in articles and things like that. So the F words, ladies and gentlemen, no big secret about it, no drama, is fight, flight, freeze, flock, and fawn. Okay, all right.
Good job.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think would have heard of all of this one. So what is really I'm not sure whether I will say interesting.
Hmm.
We've often, so whenever we talk about stress management,
Hmm.
right, we tend to go into fight, flight, freeze, and we don't talk about flock and fawn. So let's park flock and fawn for a while. Let's
Okay.
cover the fight, flight, freeze first, right? Now, I
Hmm.
think first and foremost, I think when we do the reason we do well-being is because we are stressed.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
So what is stress? Stress is when we feel overwhelmed by the challenges in life.
Hmm.
Because otherwise, in our flow language, we call it a stretch, right?
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
what we used to call it, or rather, what we do usually in stress management today, what is common is positive stress. So, what is
Hmm.
positive stress? When you're able to cope,
Yep.
because you realize that you are experiencing stress.
Hmm.
And from today onwards, we like to introduce the word stretch to you instead of
Yep.
positive stress, so
Yep.
that with the boundaries between stretch and stress is very
Stress.
clear, and positive and negative is very clear, right?
Yep.
Now, why stretch? Because the emotions that you experience when you are challenged, right, are
Hmm.
usually the ones that one has got positive impact on you, i.e., it increases your energy level,
Okay.
thus increasing your performance level.
Correct.
All right. So energy is increased. I'm trying not to use the word positive because I think we use it very loosely.
Usually.
So
Yep.
yeah. So for example, when I'm excited or when I feel challenged, my energy increases, my focus increases, my performance increases.
Increases. Yes.
That we like to introduce you to the word stretch now,
Hmm.
and what used to be known as positive stress. So positive stress, if you like using the word, has got two components. One is positive energy, that means increase in your energy levels that comes with the emotions that you experience,
Hmm.
and that in return increases your performance from the past when you were comfortable to an optimal level. Now, when does that shift from
Before you go to shift, right? Maybe it's helpful for us to also unpack a little bit about what you mean by you have in an increase in energy, right? And what is that? What does that do in your system? Or how do we recognize an increase in energy in our system, right? I mean, one is excitement, I think. Excitement that this is an interesting piece of work. But
mm,
there's also a little bit of, interesting piece of work. I know, I feel that when there is a particular group of participants that I'm going to be working with, there is excitement, but there's also that little thing in my stomach that goes, a bit, it's a little bit like sick,
mm.
right? But it's not sick that you will vomit, but it's sick that you go like, oh, I'm not too sure how it's going to turn out. I hope it turns out well, but I think I've got it in my, in myself to hack it, as you would say, right? So there's that little bit of yeah, excitement, energy, right, and positive energy. That's one. You also said challenge, so that comes along with what I'm thinking about. So this stretch has an element of challenging the skills that we have right now, right? It's stretching it a little bit, right? What How would someone feel when they're challenged? I don't know. It's me means I feel like I want to vomit.
I think first
Not
and
vomit.
foremost, we, we assume that we use the right words for the emotions that we're experiencing. Number one, we don't. Because if
Hmm.
you realize, even when
Hmm.
people are experiencing positive stress, they will say stress.
Stressed. Yep.
Yeah.
Correct.
So, one is
Hmm.
again choice of words, right? I'm
Hmm.
just.
Hmm.
Number two is I think it is pretty normal that we have mixed emotion for any event,
Hmm. Okay.
right?
Yep.
Any event. So we tend to assume that we only have one emotion at one time for
Hmm.
one event. But in every moment in time, we have hundreds, if not thousands, of thoughts about an issue, about somebody, about something. So your whatever number of thoughts that you are entertaining consciously and unconsciously creates
Hmm.
emotions in your body, right?
Okay. Yep.
And different emotions are purely energy. They are really physical energy and chemical reaction in your body.
Hmm.
So that is why when we are excited, we feel more energetic. We can do more things when we are excited than when we are frustrated.
Yeah.
So it means that when you're frustrated, you might feel you are doing more, but you'll find at the end of the cycle, you will feel tired or burnout because
Tired.
you've
Yes.
used up your battery. Your battery is not being charged.
Hmm.
See?
Hmm.
So you'll find that you continue to have charge when you have positive emotions,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
But when you're experiencing, difficult emotions, right? You continue to do things, but you are not charging as your battery is being drained, which is why
Depleted. Yep.
also, yeah, you feel depleted, which is why at the end of that cycle you are depleted and you actually feel burnout, right? So
Hmm.
those
Hmm.
are, I think, two things that we don't consciously use, understand or use this, which is why people think, stress can be positive. The word stress, just from a medical perspective, from a biological perspective, when we're talking about stress has a negative impact on our physical health, full
Hmm.
stop.
Hmm.
Okay, there's no two ways about
Ways
it.
about it. Yep.
Stress is also inevitable. That's why we talk about survival of the fittest,
Hmm.
right? Now, why? Because when we are stressed, this is where we build resilience. We feel stressed because we face adversity, difficult situation, right? And
Yep.
when we go through difficult situations, what happens is that we build resilience, right? When we build resilience, we feel stronger, right? So stress is an inevitable, which is why we have the fight and flight system. Hi, Kirtana, good to see you. I wanted to tell Sham, Stephanie has said hello, Gerald has said hello,
Oh.
James has said hello on LinkedIn. Guys, I'm seeing you, but I'm not able to highlight your comment yet. And we are hoping Kirtana will do some magic to it. Thanks, Kirtana. So we'll go back to this while we can highlight your hellos. Yeah, but I see you, James and Gerald and Stephanie, right? Now, so the fight and flight system, if you
Hmm.
think about it, is active state of managing stress or overcoming stress or whatever you want to call it. So
Hmm.
when I'm stressed, that means I see stress is really, I see danger, I feel I'm in trouble. So I don't feel safe.
Would it be would it be managing stress, or would the word be managing stress by flight or fight, or is it avoiding stress?
No, I think it's managing. So
Hmm.
if you look at active managing, right?
Mm.
So when you talk about, so let's talk about fight and flight that all of us know. So it's active. Why is it active? That means you are still able to react to something, an adversity in your life. So the adversity in your life is stress, whatever that is. A
Yep.
shorter deadline, going for a meeting, or me almost missing my flight today,
Right.
right?
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Having a meeting or a chat with a senior leader in the organization, who may be your boss's boss, for example,
Yeah.
or a
So,
client, right? A
yeah.
difficult
Oh,
conversation.
so there's so many things, right? So the fight system, fight. So why I say active, when you are fighting, you are actively engaged to fight the issue, to overcome the problem. We go into fight because we believe we can win.
Okay. Yeah.
Whether we win or not is a different thing,
It's a
right?
different
But
thing. Yeah. But the instinct is, I think I can fight my way out of this, right?
so it's active participation, right? Now,
Correct.
flight is actually quite a wise thing. Again, you are running away from danger because you know your opponent is stronger
Too
than you.
strong. Yep. Correct.
So think about simple things like, oh my gosh, if some of my friends, actually, if my children were listening, they'd be so happy because this is like a public confession, right? Now, so when I put out a question at the family table, my family members, except actually my daughters, the boys and the girls, right? The girls will put up a fight. The boys will flight.
Flight. Okay.
The flight, right? So they were like, okay, let's just not answer the question. So they're going into a flight mode, right? Because they've made up their mind that whenever they argue with the girls at home, they're not going to win.
Okay.
Okay, so and you find this a lot of times in conversations, right?
Correct.
Some people are seen as argumentative. Some people, every time there is a conflict or a disagreement, they will find a way out. They get away because they know they're not going to win. That's flight, right?
Yes.
So fight and flight, you are actively making choices,
Okay.
which is survival. You are thinking, I need to survive. You're thinking what you need to do to be safe, right? So when I
Yes.
fight, I want to survive. When I fly, I want to be
You want to,
safe,
yep. Correct.
right? Now, then they introduce the word freeze. Now,
Freeze.
if you think about it, in the past, right, when we talk about freeze, we haven't paid much attention. So freeze is literally in the animal kingdom, you playing dead.
Possum.
Now,
The possums used to play
yeah,
dead, right? Or play dead.
correct.
Yeah.
Now, why do you
Correct.
play dead? Because you are so overwhelmed by the issue that you just collapse. Now, today, so if you look at our nervous system, so when we talk about our autonomic nervous system, again, this is central to whether we talk about stress management or psychological safety or well-being, right?
Yep.
Because
Okay.
stress affects your health, and your health is important for your well-being. All right. Psychological safety has a direct impact on your well-being because if you internally don't feel safe, that's also going to affect your health. It's just that
Yep.
we've not seen, because we have not paid attention or importance to emotions. We didn't realize that 75% of our illnesses are actually what we call lifestyle illnesses, and the roots are from a lot of emotions that we don't address, right? Now, so going back to freeze, right? So if you look at your nervous system, so your nervous system has got a fight, flight. So if you talk about our nervous system has got three parts, right? So we often only talk about two parts,
Okay.
right? What are the two parts that we talk about? We talk about sympathetic and parasympathetic.
Yes.
Sympathetic, activated when you're stressed,
Mm.
and your fight and flight comes from there.
From there.
Heart
Yep.
becomes, you sweat, you can't breathe, and da, right? The other part is when you're calm and relaxed, you meditate, you're zen, right? Now
Yes,
that part is activated by your parasympathetic activity is activated.
that's right.
These are two parts that we always talk about, right?
Hmm.
Now,
Hmm.
having said that, freeze actually belongs to another part which now is
Hmm.
associated to traumatic experience, because now with mental health on the
Okay.
rise now, so and this is like reason, right? Because we often clustered it together,
Hmm.
right, as a stress response. It is a stress reaction, right? It is a stress reaction. I'm so stressed, I don't know what to do, I faint,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So and you'll find that when we are overwhelmed, when fear overtakes, that's what we do. You can pass out, right? People who have had the experience will know it. I've had, so I know how that feels, right? So let's, if you go into what we call trauma response, right? Now in the past, what is trauma? You either, so trauma started with an injury in the brain, right? So you have a physical injury. So that's why you have in hospitals, you meet with an accident, they'll send you to a trauma center, because
Hmm.
your brain and your whole system is traumatized,
Hmm.
overwhelmed, right?
Hmm.
Now,
Hmm.
today, sometimes we use the word trauma a little bit loosely now. Now, but if you think about trauma, is your inner system feels overwhelmed by something that you're experiencing.
Hmm. Okay.
Now, unfortunately, now you now if you come from a difficult background, very poor, no money, abused, these are very clear cut trauma experiences, right?
Yeah.
They call it the big trauma. Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
Hmm.
what we are now recognizing is this: all of us would have had our mini trauma experiences. For
Hmm.
example, you are in school and you're waiting for your mom to pick you up, and your mom had an emergency and she didn't turn up. Everybody went back, and you thought you lost your mom, or your mom didn't want you for whatever, because the day before your brother made fun of you and said you were picked up from the dustbin, and you are
Hmm.
5 years old. You believe that. So for a 5-year-old child, that's a traumatic experience, because my I lost my mommy,
Hmm. Okay.
right? So we need to know from 0 to 7, right? We are creating our operating system. So what happens is, so imagine you're 5, and now you have this experience, an overwhelming experience. Your mom comes now. So your mom comes after 1 hour, but 1 hour feels like years for you, for a 4-year, 5-year-old, right? Yeah. So now I want you to imagine, if you're a 5-year-old, everybody has gone by, you're alone with your teacher, you don't know what happened to your mom, right? What would you experience? A kind of fear. Now, in that 1 hour, you did not freeze, you did not faint.
Hmm. Hmm.
What has happened is you figured out a way to cope. Some children will not cry, they'll hold on. And then when they see you, they'll go, oh, mommy, right?
Yep.
I mean, even I do that. Sometimes I think I'm strong, and then when I speak to my friend, I'll start breaking down. My friend Anita Hamid has the defect. When I speak to her, I can cry. Other times, I feel strong, right?
Hmm.
Now, so some people have that effect. So now, what you're doing in that space of your trauma is that you are learning how to suppress and control your emotions, right?
So, so are you saying that learning or that learned behavior of suppression of your emotions is the thing that causes that freeze response or the freeze reaction?
So what we inevitably do as
Hmm.
kids, firstly, is that we're in danger. So I want you to imagine, as a child, you're in danger, mommy is lost.
Hmm.
Okay?
Okay.
I can't fight, I
Hmm.
can't flight,
Hmm.
I didn't faint, I even didn't freeze.
Hmm. Hmm.
Right? Now,
Mm.
or I froze my emotions, perhaps, right? I froze my
Yeah.
emotions. I suppressed or repressed it. Or, depending on what people around tell you, you're a boy, you shouldn't be crying, you're a big
Crying.
girl, you're
Yep.
a capital, don't worry, nothing will happen. I want you to stay strong. So people say things like that, expecting an adult behavior in a child,
Mm.
right?
Okay. All right.
Now, what happens is I put on, and we all have done that, right? We put on a strong front. The 5-year-old puts up a strong front. When mommy comes, a couple of things can happen. I can look at mommy and have a breakdown, which is good because I've released it. Now,
Mm.
also depends how mommy responded to me, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you think
Correct.
about it, a lot of times people cannot deal with another person's emotions. For example, even I've seen this in among adults, right? So if I break down in front of my friend will say, "Don't cry, la." That's the first thing we tend to say. Don't
Mm.
cry.
Mm.
Now, why? Don't cry, because when you cry, I don't know what to do. That's the reason I tell you not to cry.
Or when you cry, I feel like crying as well.
Yeah.
Huh.
So we don't want to be in that vulnerable space, so we stop the crying. And you realize when people say that, we also
Yep.
swallow it in, right? Now,
Correct.
so depending on how what happened at that moment, right? Um, the child. So if the child had this full expression, getting that fear out, the mother pacifying and found the safety, then that
Mm.
doesn't become a trauma experience.
Mm. Mm.
For whatever reason, if the mother and she comes and you cry and mom say, please don't cry now, mommy has got a lot of things to deal with, okay, I don't need
Mm.
this.
Mm. Mm.
And then you toughen up. What you learn how to do is basically now suppress, because suppression or repression of your emotion becomes your survival mode. Now, why? If we think about it, when you don't cry, when you don't look weak, when you're always happy, people praise you. So think
Mm.
about it. It's a conditioning, right? You look at kids and say, "Oh, my eldest kid, I tell you, she was so easy to bring up because she never cries. When I leave
Yeah.
her at the babysitter, she doesn't cry."
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Mm.
Compared to a crying child is seen as a difficult child, needing more attention, more
Mm.
drama, basically.
Mm.
Even
Mm.
now, with educated parents, right, we still say such things. Or in adults, someone who expresses emotion, we say that you're immature. You don't know how to deal with your emotions,
Or
right?
you are very emotional, right? That's what you get at the workplace. Yep. If
Right? Or sorry, go
yep. No, no.
ahead.
Okay.
Yeah. And people who are cool are considered strong.
Mm. Correct.
People who look cool on the outside. So we have a lot of this conditioning that doesn't make us feel safe. All right. Now,
Mm.
coming back to the definition of trauma. So I want to imagine now, our trauma, we all have little trauma experience because we can't control everything.
Correct. Yeah, and the trauma.
Okay.
Yep.
And
And the,
over the years,
mm.
so over the years, we are conditioned to respond to life in a particular way.
Mm.
Now, in your child, so imagine 0 to up to 17 years old, you're in your family. If your family doesn't allow you to express emotion, your school doesn't allow you to express emotion, your community doesn't allow you to express emotion, you are now well trained. And then
Mm.
you go to university, you again, you might be well trained, right? And that's why sometimes you find when people get out of their homes, they can be overwhelmed because you don't know what they're experiencing, but never mind. Then they go to work,
Mm.
right? Now, so when they go to work, so now when I experience any difficult situation in my life, at home, what I have learned how to do not show how I feel, because mommy will not say I'm a good girl.
Mm.
Mommy
Right.
says I'm a good girl when I behave myself, when I don't cry,
Or I don't
right?
whine, or I don't
Right.
make an issue.
Or
Yep.
even you'll find that one of the things that we say, or I've heard people saying, even adults, is don't wash your dirty linen in public.
Mm.
So you'll find that if our we have issues in our family, we tell our children not to talk about it to anybody, to
Yep.
hold it as a secret. And secret means is shame. So we tune, yeah. So now
Mm.
then what happens is that I grew up as this person and I have this identity and I don't want to talk about anything to anybody, right? Because that's
Yep.
how I've survived. That's how what it means to be strong. And if I have conflicts, I'm not going to deal with it. Now I come to work, right? I come to work and I don't feel safe.
Because I'm bringing all that past experience with me. Is that what we are saying? It comes
Yeah.
with, so the ones that we experience as a child, the one that we experience as in school, as a teenager, as a young adult in the first job, or before that in university. I know I experienced it. Going to university, leaving home for the first time, right? It's like if I remember myself correctly, it was like a whole lot of emotions that you're going to have to deal with, right? And then the first job experience. All right. I know we need to move this conversation into the workplace, because how does this then show up in the workplace, right? Right. But before we do that, I just want to acknowledge a couple of people. For some reason, it's not coming up here. So Stephanie wrote on LinkedIn, I resonate with what you have shared. I tend to suppress my emotions since I was young, as my late mum did not allow me to express my true emotion. That's from Stephanie. James, hi James. James says hello, Malar and Shamini. Thank you for joining us, James, and thank you for sharing that little bit of your life with us, Stephanie. Live. Thank you. So yeah, Malar,
That's
take it
huge.
through
That's
now.
huge.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Stephanie, thank you. Thank you very much. And I just want to add to what Stephanie has said. Your mom
Hmm.
didn't allow you, yes, but I'm sure she never had permission to express hers either.
Oh, and yeah, that's one. And I think it's a legacy that we carry on from generation after generation, right?
Yeah.
We bring the experiences that we have because we think our mums, so your mum's mum or our grandparents did the right thing by us, and we as in and I've noticed this with myself. As much as I say I'm never ever going to be like my mother, but I'm really actually quite like my mother lah. Okay, but that's a different thing altogether. Malar, let's bring it into the workplace.
Okay. All right. So the whole idea of understanding this is this, right? The reason, so there are two parts to this that we need to truly understand. That number
Mm.
one is a lot of this behaviors we are unconscious about our operating system because it has worked for us.
Mm. Yep.
So we keep what works. So it help you to survive. It help you to get where you are. So there were benefits to it.
I'm not. I think it. In one hand, it has worked for us in some situations. Um, Maybe it has not worked for us in some situations, but we've not been given the feedback that it has not worked for us.
Yeah,
Perhaps.
so I'm not sure about that
Mm.
because why I say why it has worked for you, you felt safe avoiding conflict,
Okay. Okay.
right? And
Yep.
you see, where it worked for you in your growing years because when you spoke back, you were seen as rude.
Mm.
And it could be that when you talked back, you were punished,
Mm. Mm.
right?
Yep.
So you learned that behavior that kept you safe. Now,
Okay.
what will happen is that has become, I call it your operating system.
Mm.
And that must have got you where you are today safely. You
Mm.
feel safe in this operating system. And that's your reality and truth.
Okay. Got it.
Anything beyond what you know doesn't
Mm.
feel. So can you imagine, you if you grew up in a space where you never were asked for your opinion, suddenly you come into a meeting and people are asking for your opinion, right? And everyone looks like your parent because they're older,
Mm. Mm. Mm.
or someone sounds like your mom or your dad or your teacher whom you felt a lot of fear for. So now what will happen? You will automatically behave in a way that is safe, which is better keep quiet, better quietly agree.
Mm. Which is the fawn, right?
Yes.
Mm.
So when we talk about fight, flight, freeze, I mean you collapse, then there's a flocking and fawning, right?
Mm.
We
Mm.
didn't pay much attention. So fawn in a very simple way is, how people have people pleasing habits. You
Mm.
you say yes to people, you just want to please people, right? Now, how do I know that? Because I'm so good at it, okay? So when you talk about people pleasing, now why you grew up learning how to please powerful people in your life, and that's how you survived. So, for
Mm.
example, if I don't talk back to my mom, I am pleasing her. I am making her happy. And by doing that, I am safe from a punishment
Right? Or
or negative
things are smooth.
consequences.
Yep,
Yeah,
correct.
smooth,
Yep.
it worked for me. So then when I see other people, when I feel threatened, what's the first thing I do? I do what I did with my mother, play safe.
Mm.
So it becomes, your operating mode because it works,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
Then now I go into a meeting and then you're telling me, okay, Malado, this place is psychologically safe. You know how people just blatantly use it. This place is
Yep.
psychologically safe, right? Like, how would I know it's psychologically safe? I don't know
Correct.
anybody
Yeah.
here. You guys look
Mm.
scary for me. And
Yep.
so I'm still operating from the 5-year-old, 7-year-old, 9-year-old who was not resourceful, and the only way I knew how to survive is to fawn, to please. So
Mm.
who do I please? I please my boss. I agree with you, boss. I totally agree with you. How often we sit
Oh,
in corporate meetings?
correct, correct, right? Or we please the people, the person who's seen as having strength, right? In whatever way you're having strength, either the leader because he has the authority or the power, or the most important influential person in the team that you gravitate towards, or the team gravitates towards, right? So that's fawn. What's flock then?
Ah, have you had situations, right? Like this is interesting for me. Um, have you had, so for example, let's say we're both colleagues, right? And we're talking over lunch,
We are
Sham,
colleagues.
well, we don't have a boss. So we're talking about
Yep.
our bosses. Do you agree? Okay, Ashok is our boss. Okay.
Okay, okay,
Since
okay,
he's
okay. Yes, yes, yes. Let's do that. Yeah,
use
yeah,
him as a negative example, right? So
yeah.
I said, hey, Sham, boss wants to introduce some new structure in the office. What do you think? So you disagree with me, say, yeah, I don't like that boss of ours, that Ashok. Now say something nasty about
Okay,
Ashok.
okay. So I can say now. I can say now.
You can say
Okay.
that
This
publicly.
Ashok is forever trying new things. Don't know whether it works or not, but he always wants to do new things, always very gung ho about new things.
Yeah, I know, right? You know what? I tell you, in this meeting, Sham, I know he's going to ask for a vote. I'm not going to agree.
So man, okay, if you're not agreeing, then I also won't agree.
Okay, good. So you better keep your word, huh?
Hmm.
You, every time when we are here, you will say that. And then the moment you see Mr. Ashok, I don't know what will happen to you, but let's try. So we go for a meeting, and then Mr. Ashok puts up this idea, and I'm like, okay, Sham is
Hmm.
with me, but whatever it is, I'm going to be courageous. I don't agree with Ashok. And then suddenly, and I'm looking at you, you go like, ah, yes, Mr. Ashok, I agree with you, and I want to kill you, right?
Huh.
Because and I don't know whether you've had this experience in the past. I think when I was much, much younger and more stupid in that sense, I used to, no, no, really, I used to judge people and say, this person doesn't have a backbone, this person doesn't keep his word, this person doesn't have integrity, or we even say this person is fake, or she fakes it,
Hmm.
like you see her now, she'll smile and then
Hmm. Hmm.
now
Yeah.
I understand this concept. What I realize is this: you don't feel safe, and when we don't feel safe, what we do, we flock. Mammals flock because when they're together, they are safer.
Yeah, you're safer in numbers, right? The bigger the numbers, the better the play. But how do you different? Okay, I maybe this is not important. I think it is important, so I'm going to ask the question: how then do you differentiate between flock and fawn?
Okay, the way I differentiate it, quick one is
Okay,
Fawn is you do things to please people to survive.
okay,
Flock,
all right.
you follow the majority to be safe.
Okay, so if in that example that we did with Ashok being the manager, if I were to say change it around and say because Ashok is definitely wanting this project, and I'll say yes to Ashok. It could be a fawn if I want to please him, or if on the other hand, if I see a majority of our colleagues or team members voting for Ashok, then I vote then in that vein because then I'm going with the majority. I'm flocking, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
Right? And so let's talk about the impact on business.
Yes. Yep.
And that's the whole
Hmm.
idea, right?
Yep.
So think about, see, whenever we do team building or leadership programs, right?
Hmm.
Right, what are the issues that comes up, right? So you'll find that, before the meeting, before the program itself, whatever session it is,
Hmm.
companies, leaders will be talking to us and say, I really, especially with psychological safety, I want people to feel safe. They
Hmm.
want to
Hmm.
know. We did the survey and they say their voice is not heard. They
Hmm.
say that.
Hmm. Hmm.
But then when it comes to meetings, when you give them time, do they speak? They don't.
They don't. Yeah. And then they send people for training programs, right? Because you don't know
Correct.
how to speak, and so what you do is you come to programs that the types of programs I do, right? And communication skills, whatever it is it thinking on your feet? How do you contribute at meetings? How do you give your point of view? And people go back with skills, so they've got the skills, but the environment might not still be yet conducive for them to voice out, right? Because they still go into the fight,
Correct.
flight, and freeze mode kind of a thing, or the flock and the fawn,
So two
right?
things, right, Cham? So the environment. So one is the skill. You need skills.
Yeah,
Your environment need to be conducive. But the thing is this, right? If you look at the groups that we work
that
with,
one.
I'm talking about the good leaders that we work with. The good
Yeah,
leaders really, I find good leaders working very hard to provide the right kind of environment.
correct, correct.
Now, so let's assume the environment is right. The intention
Hmm.
of the
Hmm.
leader is correct,
Hmm.
right? So here
Hmm.
you have leaders who say, I tell you to talk, why you don't want to talk, right? They don't understand. And you know that the companies that I work with, the amount of hard work that they put in,
Yep,
structures,
yep.
systems. Let's make sure, they set a timer, you learn facilitation skills so that everybody gets that whatever number of
Airtime. Yep,
their time, right?
yep.
Because that's what psychological safety is all about. But people don't speak now. Why?
Hmm.
Because we do not know what is stopping them and what they need to make them feel safe. And
Hmm.
sometimes, so we don't take that into consideration. Hi, Gerald. So number, I see Gerald already. I forgot my
Yeah,
next.
yeah, yeah.
I,
So it's the third thing being their mindset, which has been shaped by the experiences that they've gone through, right? That has helped them fine tune, sharpen, and develop that ability to either fly, fly away, freeze, flock, all right, or fight, all right, or
correct.
fawn, right? We don't take that into consideration because sometimes we don't realize that this third component that's there, right? And I agree with you, the work that we've been doing with some of the leaders, that it's really amazing some of these leaders are doing, right, to make sure that the environment that their team is in is safe, it's encouraging, it's growth driven, um, and yet they still stumble, they still hit a road, not that they stumble, they hit a roadblock because it's that third component that we're not considering, right? Yeah. Hmm.
And if you don't understand, there's no awareness. Not Most leaders are not even aware
Mm,
of fight and flight. See,
mm,
fight
yep.
is clear, right? You will find that even flight is sometimes not clear for in leadership,
Mm,
right?
mm,
We
mm,
often say, we almost label people as weak.
mm,
We almost label people as they don't have the skills, they don't have leadership skills, because they're not speaking up, in public, not giving opinions loudly, agreeing, disagreeing for the sake of disagreeing, right?
yeah.
So
Or being very aggressive when the response or the reaction is a fight reaction, right? Yep.
correct. So, and I think the whole idea of having this conversation, and I
Mm,
do think spend 40 minutes in explaining it, and the objective is really, if we understood this,
mm,
we will understand that some of the reactions that we get, right, is coming from a stress response that they know. And if we understand that as leaders, individuals, friends, managers, and family members, we then know where it's coming from. And when we know where it's coming from, we don't need to know the story, but we
yep.
can identify patterns, right?
Mm, mm-hmm,
Now, then we would be able to support that person, have a conversation, and pay attention to creating an environment that will make that person feel safe. So, for example, right, someone who
mm,
doesn't speak in public, right? Uh, I might be a manager who says, okay, I know this person, and I know this person has a phone response, for example, right?
mm,
So what I now want to do is that I will ask them to write down their ideas, right? Because then
mm,
you can't do people pleasing. One,
yep.
I might send you for a course to help you develop yourself as a person first,
Mm, okay.
more than just the skill, right? So I think
Mm,
these are things, when we talk about growth mindset, you need to develop yourself internally for you to understand where it's coming from, how it served you, and how it has become irrelevant today, because you are an adult today, right? That's on
mm,
one hand, right? Now, why
okay.
is this important for the business? Now, if you look at businesses and groups now, a lot of times, we talk about this in our show, the people who are outspoken, people who are loud, are the ones,
Were hurt.
the
Mm,
corporate
and
network.
move up. Yep. Correct.
People who
Mm,
don't shout out,
mm,
but who are quietly doing their work, don't
mm,
either have their voice heard, or they don't get the right opportunities coming to them, because you're not seen, you're not known. I can't do anything with what's unknown, right?
mm.
Now,
Or unseen. Yeah.
from a business perspective, I'm losing out on talent.
Mm,
From business perspective, all of these people who fawn and flock and freeze, right, are holding on to information that's essential to the business that you do not know except in a survey,
yeah. Correct.
right? And this information is critical to stay relevant in the business today.
True. I think in the most short term is that they're holding on to information that may lead me to, as a leader, to make an inappropriate or the wrong decision.
Correct.
Yeah. And that's not ideal. Obviously, it's not optimal at all in any place. But I want to go back. I want to cycle a little bit back, Malar, because if I'm a leader and I have got 15, 20 people under me, right?
Mm.
And I've put systems in place, I put processes in place to make the environment psychologically safe.
Mm.
As we've seen some of the leaders that we work with, they do, right? And they take a lot of pains doing that. um, to pay attention to 20 people having different responses or seeing what are some of those responses. That's quite a lot, right? To see whether they are freezing, they're fighting, they're flying, okay, they're flocking, they're falling, right? Because I know this individual is one, a good performer in terms of getting things done, but I don't hear the voice, right? When I don't hear the voice, nobody else hears the voice as well. That's quite a lot of work to do. That's quite a lot of work to do, right? What
Is
to
that a
do?
question?
Yes.
So I don't think it's a lot of work to do. I don't think
Okay.
so. I think two
Mm,
things. Number one
mm,
is understanding concept. So if you
mm.
understand the forbidden words, fight, flight, freeze, flock, and fawn, because
Mm,
all these words have negative connotation in life and especially at work,
okay.
right? Think about leaders that we talk to who dare not say they feel stressed when they are stressed.
Mm,
Think about,
okay.
and I'm saying leaders because if leaders feel that way, how do people who have less power should feel, right?
See.
Now, can
Yeah.
you imagine as leaders, you are not able to talk about the KPI that's given to you, even though you don't believe in it. You know it's impossible. You believe it's impossible. You can't talk
Mm,
about it.
mm,
Yeah. So
mm,
I think first is to understand these words and how they make you human and it's
mm,
normal. Number
mm,
one. Number
mm.
two is to normalize this so
Okay.
that when you normalize, it's like mental health, right? We've normalized it. Now everybody
Mm,
says, "Oh, I've got a mental health issue because
mm,
I cannot be discriminated for it." Now, if you introduce language, people will begin to understand themselves better. Number one.
mm,
So it's a
mm.
self thing.
Okay.
So all the structures that changes that you're making, can you just include one more, which is actually more foundational, which is help people to understand what they are experiencing, number one. Now, number
Mm,
two, we know that the middle managers are getting sorted out from the workspace.
mm,
Now,
mm,
because you don't do all this, God bless you. I said the right thing. Now, why, as managers, tell me how much of time is it going to take for us to understand fight, flight, freeze, flock, and fawn? Well, just listen
mm.
to this. This,
But yeah,
this
sure. You probably figure it out already. Yep.
right? Number one.
Mm,
Number two, the next thing you're just looking at people to observe their patterns. Now,
mm,
why patterns? Do they behave like this all the time? Then that's a personality trait.
mm,
If they're
mm,
only behaving when they are stressed. Now, as a manager, do you have 2 minutes to check in and say, how were you feeling in the meeting? Because I
mm,
saw you doing that. So you
mm,
confirm. The next question is, of course, assuming you have rapport with the person, you say, how what can I do to support you better? Because I would love to hear your voice.
mm,
Now,
mm.
think about in our training program, we meet people, 30 people for the first time, right?
Okay.
Now, what do, right? We
Mm,
do, we say, what do? We say, guys, I know some of you may be uncomfortable, so that's why, okay, we call different people, we get them to
yep.
write it down. We even
Yep.
do anonymous kind of data collection. Now,
Yep.
why it's a lot more work for us, but because we want to be inclusive of everybody, we make agreements to say, tell me how you like to be treated. What would you like happen in this room?
Correct. Yep.
And so those are things, I think these are really basic skills for managers and leaders. I really don't think, there's like, you're not going to spend, I don't even think after you acquire the skill, learn
Mm.
about it and know about it, you're just going to observe. All you need to do is pay attention to what people are experiencing.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that basically use your five senses to figure out the five F's, right?
Yeah, and yeah, pay attention. Basically,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
role
Be
of
present. Yeah,
Yeah,
be present and pay attention to things that you are picking up. And if your system is kind of saying that something doesn't fit right, it's to also listen to your senses telling you that something's not fitting, and it does what's not right with this situation. Why is this person acting a little bit differently in this particular situation? I want to read out what Gerald Ebenezer has put on comments. It's a bit long, so I'm not going to show it out here, right? Gerald says, good point. This is what I found working with people from across Asia. Too long. There is a cultural dimension to it. In some countries where power distance is high, they defer to authority and hardly speak up, even if they have a different view. In Oceania, I find that people tend to speak up openly and are okay to be vulnerable. I used to be in the former category years back, now graduated into the latter category and very comfortable with it. Well done, Gerald. There is a risk. Yes, anything has a risk. And thank you for bringing that up. When we speak up, and we need courage. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I might be totally wrong. And it seems, hang on a second. Did I get a little bit? Yeah. Let me see. I might be totally off from what you guys are talking about. No, you're not. No, you're not. You've given us the perspective from both, as the person on the receiving end and also as the person who's giving it. So whether it's leader or team member, it does not matter. But you've been, you're sharing it from those two perspectives. Thank you very
And
much.
he has shown that how operating in different areas can make you feel safe because
Mm,
everybody is behaving the same way.
yeah, yeah.
See, here, right? It's a pity we couldn't show the video on this
Compliance, the
the compliance.
compliance video. Yeah,
He's absolutely, Gerald. You're absolutely right about power distance. Malaysia has one of the we have ranked
highest
very
power.
high for power
Yeah.
distance. Now, why when we have power distance, that means we're going to basically idol worship people in
Mm,
power, right? Now,
mm,
which means that I'm not going to speak up, right? So Malaysia is known for that, proven for that. Now, and we also know that culturally in families we were also that way for a long time. I'm
correct.
saying we were because I'm thinking there are modern families where the power distance is almost not there, that we can't deal with our children's questions anymore.
Yeah, well, then you go into, well, that's a traditional family and this is a modern family. So, yeah, you don't want to put labels to it. But yeah, I think, is it when the power distance is high, is it idolizing, or is because it's very hierarchical, and there is that thinking that if you are in a particular position, you need to be respected and treated in a certain way?
I think offhand, it's not so straightforward. So when if I think about years ago when we were growing up, right, what was sold to us when said respect your father is actually
Mm.
fear your father because you'll get into trouble.
Yep.
So the respect was used interchangeably actually to instill fear.
Mm.
Now,
Mm.
fear is to control people.
Yes.
Respect doesn't control people. Respect gives you freedom as an equal person,
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
right?
So we use the words interchangeably. You're right. Yeah.
So
So what
even
we.
though we say it's respect, no, I
Mm.
don't think it was respect. Because when we
Mm.
talk about power distance, there is enough experience for you to know that if you mess with someone in power, you will get into trouble.
Okay. Very nice. Okay.
Yeah. So
So, Malar, I'm going to ask you to do your 1 minute summary, right? Because we've come to 7 o'clock, and
yeah.
yeah, and I think it'd be a nice way for us to summarize and close the show. So, from we talked about several things. We talked about how it is a programming that we have gone through from childhood onwards. And because it is what it is, it's fight, flight, freeze, flock, and fawn. It is generally driven by some trauma, big or small, or perpetuated once in a off time, or reinforced through the time that we bring this behavior into the organization or into work, right? And in situations of stress, not stretch, where stretch is the space of being in our optimal self, where we're enjoying the work, we're energized, our battery is depleting and then going up, being recharged, depleting, recharged. Stress is a place where our batteries get discharged and then not recharged, right? And to what leaders need to perhaps think about, aside from the skills and aside from creating a safe environment and with processes and systems, it's this idea that what is this history that this individual comes with? All right, what's their mindset, what's their experience been like before they joined your team, right? And how that can play in a negative way or in a reverse way to what you've been doing in terms of creating a safe environment, right? Why? Because we all want business results, right? So we've taken it through these three parts. If you were to summarize this in 1 minute, how would you do that? Can you share that with us?
I thought you just summarized.
I almost
I mean, you just did that really, and you did it. I think if I look at hopefully in 1 minute, I think it is really very important as leaders to get the foundational F's right as
Mm,
to what does it mean for human beings to be human beings. What is normal? And these are all normal.
mm,
So first is to understand, accept what is normal, and then use these knowledge and awareness to help people bring their best versions to life. And when people bring their best versions to life,
mm.
we get a chance to get best results, and that includes work. And we might make it to heaven.
Okay. So on that note, there's some hope for us making it to heaven, and also some hope for us to make it into the next week for the next show in 1 week's time, next Thursday. Thank you, Malar, for sharing the F words in leadership and having a conversation with me about that. Um, I think it. I hope we have given those who have tuned in and those who will tune in future, or listen or watch this episode, some ideas that might help them think about their team and how their team is, or why their teams react, and perhaps give them some starters for conversations, important conversations that we could have. Right. And on that
Nice.
note, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. You know where to find us next week, same time, same place. Click on the LinkedIn link, and you will get to hear our next show on Leadership in Flow Asia Season 3. Malar, over to you.
All right, Cham, thanks for really letting me bring up this topic. I know we were supposed to do a book summary, so thank you very much for giving me that space. But um, thank you, General. And I think as we say goodbye, I'm in Singapore because tomorrow is our, I would say, mini leadership learning festival that Cham is organizing, or Be in Clarity is organizing. We are hoping to air the keynote,
Hmm.
um, yeah, our keynote live tomorrow at 9. So tune in if you haven't connected. So I'm assuming those who are here are my friends. So if you haven't connected with Sharmini, connect with Sharmini and me if you haven't connected with me, so that, and click the attend button tomorrow, so that you will listen to our speaker tomorrow. Because tomorrow, I think it's interesting, because one of the things organizations are looking for is that they want you to think like an entrepreneur. And
Hmm.
tomorrow, that's exactly what we are doing. What we are interviewing, the keynote speaker is an entrepreneur, and we want to understand why he's successful. And then we're going to decode that, so that either as individuals you can pick up those mindset and skills, and
Hmm.
if you're within an organization, you know how to drive your people to have this mindset and skills. With that, this is Malar signing off from Singapore for a change. Good night.
Good night.